Hi, Jacqueline Holland here, author of The God of Endings. And in my last video, I described for you what a literary agent is. In this video, I want to tell you, basically, I want to help you walk through the decision of, do you need a literary agent or can you go it alone? And if you decide that yes, you do want a literary agent, how do you get one? It's a somewhat complex process, and it has sort of precise rules and do's and don'ts. So first, do you need a literary agent? So here are the advantages of having a literary agent. Literary agents have expertise about the publishing industry that I certainly didn't have when I was just working on my book. That expertise includes knowledge of contracts and contract negotiations, the ability to read contracts carefully. I'm not the best at that. Knowledge of industry standards. So what is a good royalty rate? What is a good advance? All of these things. They're going to know in detail, have expertise on this. The publishing industry now is different from what it used to be. You hear stories from Hemingway's day and so forth about people just mailing off their manuscript to a publisher and then eventually hearing back from them. This doesn't really happen anymore with electronic communications. Publishers would just be overwhelmed, inundated with material. There's no way that they can handle that. So publishers really don't interact with authors, for the most part, who do not have representation. Of course, there are exceptions to this. That's the big caveat I have to offer at the beginning of every video. These observations, this information is based on my personal experience. Someone who's been in the industry longer might have more information than I, or know of more exceptions. But this is just, in my experience, what I've seen. So in order to get your manuscript into a publisher's hands, you, for the most part, are going to need a literary agent, someone who the publishers know is going to vet material and work with writers to make sure that publishers are receiving the best. And also, going out on submission is what it's called when you try to sell your book. And going out on submission is sort of this really quirky little dance. And there are a lot of rules to when you do things, how you do things, who you can submit to and who you can't, and at the same time or not, all these things, preempts, and just a lot of things that writers aren't necessarily gonna know anything about. So it's a little bit like trying to buy a house without a realtor. If you are super knowledgeable, maybe you can do it. But for the rest of us, a literary agent is very, very helpful. I do know writers who do not have literary agents and are successful in that they're writing what they want to write and they're publishing it. Those authors, the ones that I know, the particular sample group that I know, they are getting smaller deals. Of course, they're not having the literary agent's cut taken out of it. That money is going straight to them. But even with that included, I think the deals they're still taking home less money. And they are working with smaller presses where they have more access to the higher ups than, say, Macmillan, my publisher Flatiron, Simon Schuster, that kind of thing. I think the people I know also have some connections and are writing within a little bit more of a niche subgenre, so science fiction or fantasy, slipstream, things where all the writers and all the artists within the community, the publishers, they kind of know each other. So that's just my observation. Someone else might have a different story of going it alone and doing it just fine. The other option, of course, is self-publishing. And self-publishing does not need a literary agent. I don't have experience with self-publishing, so I'll just say that off the bat. I have some friends who have self-published, people I know who have self-published, and I do not know anyone who has self-published and been exceptionally happy with the way things worked out for their book. And these are talented writers, but sometimes they are people who have told me that they sort of didn't have the patience for the publishing route that you typically think of, going through an agent, going to the big publishers. And some had backgrounds in marketing and thought, well, with my knowledge of marketing, I would be better able to position my self-published work than, your average Joe. And yet still were frustrated by the result. So take that for what it's worth, completely anecdotal experience. And we all have also heard of self-published novels that just catapulted to large readership, did really well. So of course there are exceptions, but I didn't feel like I had the expertise to go that route in a smart way. So I just went sort of the traditional way, and it worked out well, and I'm really happy that I did. So now let's say out of all of that, you've decided, yeah, I want a literary agent. How do you get one? So I get a lot of people asking me who my literary agent is when they meet me. And my literary agent is Jennifer Gates at Avitas Creative Management. She is a gem. I am so happy to have found her and love her so much. However, I feel like when people ask you who your literary agent is, it's a little bit like asking you who your spouse is. Like, oh, I want to get married. You have a spouse. Who's your spouse? It's like, well, my spouse might not be the best spouse for you. So literary agents are all different. Representing artists and books is such a personal endeavor that one literary agent is not the equivalent of any other. They are all unique. They all have unique strengths, and they all want to represent what they are passionate about, what they like to read, what they're interested in. And so if you write crime fiction, my agent, who may not be interested in representing crime fiction, I actually don't know if she is or not. She probably would be. She's into everything. But every literary agent has their own specialty and their own passion. And so you are not just looking for any agent, you are looking for the right agent. And I talked about that a little bit in the last video. It's a long relationship. If your agent sells your book, they will forever represent that book. So it is something that you really need to think hard about, and make sure that you are choosing someone that you are excited to work with for a really long time. So how do you find the right, not just a literary agent, but the right literary agent? It's a process, but it's totally doable. So there is one strategy that you maybe hear often, and that is to take the books that you love and go into the acknowledgements page and look for the author's thank you to their literary agent. And then query that person. So querying, I will talk about that more later, but it's essentially reaching out to a literary agent, providing them with a glimpse of your work so that they can let you know if they're interested and if they want to see more. So the upside of this strategy is that, if you have someone that you love, another author that you love, and you feel like they are writing in a sort of similar world to you, a similar style, similar topics, things like that. You're writing historical romance, you have this historical romance author who you love, then it makes sense that that agent is going to be interested in what you're writing. So do this by all means. This is challenging for me because I read a lot of old books, and Hemingway's agent is no longer with us. Dickens, so I do not tend to keep up with the new fiction as much as I would like to, because I've been so buried in the past. So, and a lot of the more recent works were just like huge, Donna Tartt's agent, I don't think is looking for anyone else at this point. Some of these agents have gotten so big that their lists are full. They're not looking for more people. But I will say, go big. Like, don't ever tell yourself, oh, this person is too prestigious or represents someone too fancy for me to approach. Agents are looking for talent. The debut novel is a valuable thing. If they can find the next breakout novelist, they are stoked to do that. So don't shoot too low. Go for it. The worst that can happen is you don't get a response or you get a rejection, but you're going to get those no matter what. So might as well try, go big. The strategy that I used that ended up actually working for me. So I queried people from my favorite books, and I, for the most part, did not get any response from any of those agents. That's not to say it's a bad strategy. Go for it. But the strategy that worked for me is doing a little research on the top agencies, literary agencies. And, you can look at the top 20 agencies, the top 10, whatever you want to do. And there's a pretty good chance that those agencies are going to be full of stellar agents. It's a competitive business. So then you go onto that agency's website and you start perusing agents. They will each have their own little homepage that gives their bio, that gives the kind of books that they love, the books they have sold in the past, any special honors or accolades they've received, and they will tell you exactly what they're looking for and if they're looking at all. Some of them will say that their lists are closed, they have enough clients, there's only so many hours in the day, there are only so many emails you can write, so their agents have a maximum capacity. So they will let you know if they are closed to submissions or if they're open and seeking to build their list. And they will tell you what they are looking for. So that is going to be your biggest indicator for who this person is and whether or not you would get along. You will find people who their favorite book is your favorite book, and that's the score, that's the indication. So you want to make a list, and I cannot recommend highly enough creating a spreadsheet of some kind, putting in there, in fact, do it, not optional, do it. You must keep track of who you reach out to because you can't reach out to them again. And you don't want to forget, did I query this person? Did I not? Did I hear back from them? Did I not? And then you're bugging them, but they already said they were gonna pass. So make a spreadsheet, write down the agents that you're interested in, do it in, batches of 10, 15, whatever. And so put down the agent, the agency, maybe what it was about them, any notes you have, oh, this person loved this book that I also love. And then it might even be good. So they're going to tell you how to query them. They're going to want a query letter, and they're going to want to see some sample of the manuscript. That might be 10 pages. It might be 20 pages, it might be 50 pages. Some will say, go ahead and send me the full manuscript. That's rare. So put in your spreadsheet how many pages you sent to them, and then have another column for response. And as you hear back from them, put in that column what response you got. Did you get a rejection? Did you get a, hey, do this and then reach back out to me? Or did you get a, send more pages, send the full manuscript? What did you hear back from this person? So that's what you're gonna do. And my first time querying, I was a, hot-headed writer. I finished my first manuscript, my first draft of the manuscript, and I was like, let's do this. Queried a bunch of people. I heard back from one guy at a really good agency in New York who was interested, asked for more pages, and then declined very kindly. I think he might have told me why he declined, which is super helpful and not necessary. He didn't have to do that. It was very helpful. And so, of course I didn't land anyone. That was silly to even try without any revision of the manuscript. And now those people that I queried, they're off limits. They're done. I'm not going to work with them. So you want to be conscious of that as you're doing this and give yourself every leg up so you're not eliminating someone who might be the perfect agent for you if you had put another pass into your manuscript, gotten it where it needed to be. So, but rather than being sad and dejected because that round didn't go well, I took that to mean, okay, I need to revise, which is what it means. Books undergo so many passes, if you can even call them passes. I mean, sometimes they're partial, sometimes they're full. Revision, rounds of revision. So don't be silly and think that you're gonna finish a first draft and you're gonna sell it to Macmillan and they're gonna hand you a bunch of money. You're gonna have to keep working at this because it takes a lot to get a book from, the stuff that we just pop out to something a reader wants to spend money on and spend time on reading. So take it. If you get rejected, nothing to sweat. You just need to revise a bit more. Send it to a few more friends, not too many, because you want to still have friends you can send it to on the next round. Send it to a few more friends, get their feedback, honest feedback, do another revision, and then give it another go. Another round of querying to new agents, put it on the spreadsheet, see what happens. Now, let's say you get a response. So some agents will say, well, if they're interested, they'll always say, oh my gosh, I love this. This is so gripping, whatever, blah, blah. Because they want to set a tone with you. If they want to sound enthusiastic and excited, even if they're kind of like, well, we'll see. But sometimes I'm sure it's super genuine. But they will ask you for the full manuscript, to send the full manuscript. You're going to send it, make sure you jot it down in your spreadsheet, and then, very important point of etiquette, let all the other agents who have not responded to you yet know, send them an email saying, just letting you know, another agent has requested the full manuscript. That tells those agents to get a move on it, or if they're interested, to bump it up on their list of priorities. If they weren't interested in the first few pages, then they might get back to you and say, that's all right, I'm gonna pass. But if they are interested, they're going to hustle and they're gonna move some things around in their schedule to get back to you in a timely manner. I recommend, these things can move really fast. I think a lot of people hear that it takes a long time. You could be waiting 6 months to hear back. Whenever I did this, I heard back from people within a couple days. Because, these agents, they know that things move fast. They know that people can get snatched up quickly and they have to be on top of it. So I wouldn't really linger too long if you're getting into like the month, 2 month. timeline, then that is, my feeling is that that's probably a pass and a signal to keep working. So I heard back pretty quickly, people asking for a full manuscript. The agent, my agent history is a fairly complicated one that maybe I'll share sometime. But so the first agent that I landed was very fast, very effusive, very aggressive in a wonderful way. She was just like, don't make any decisions until you hear from me. I'm so excited about this. Please give me a chance to weigh in, which is what you want to hear. And so if you've been given an offer of representation, which is if they read the manuscript and they're like, I love this, I want to work with you, I believe we can sell this book, they will make you an offer of representation. You have every right to wait and hear from all the other agents if you want. There's no rush. If you are made an offer, send out another email to all the agents who have not responded to you and say, just letting you know, I have received an offer of representation. Please let me know if you want me to, hear from you before I make a decision or what. You don't even necessarily need to put that in, because if they want you to, they'll probably email and say, hey, before you make a decision, please, I need a couple more days. Please wait for me so that you can have all your options before you. If you are so lucky to have multiple offers of representation, that's great. And that's like how it should be, because you don't want to just take whatever comes along. You want to be able to choose. This can be really hard and agonizing, and there are a lot of factors to weigh. But it is, as I've said before, it's sort of like picking a spouse or picking someone to date. You do not want to just take whoever comes along. You want to find the person who's really a fit for you. So you're going to talk to them on the phone. That's usually the next step. Let's schedule a call. This phone conversation is so important. You really need to listen to your gut. They're going to tell you about their experience of reading the manuscript. They are going to ask you questions about yourself, hopefully. If they don't, pay attention to that. I had one agent who did not ask me one single question about myself, and that was a little bit of a red flag to me. Mostly talked about himself and how great an agent he was, and how great his agency was, and how obviously you're going to go with me. And I was like, I'm okay. So they're going to ask questions about you. They're going to tell you about their experience with the manuscript, what they loved about it. And then they also are going to give you probably just a taste. They probably won't want to overwhelm you, but of their vision for what still needs to happen, the kind of big things that still need to happen before they will feel like they're ready to go out and sell this baby. You won't want to hear this, right? You will want them to say, it's perfect, let's just go right ahead and sell this. But if you hear that, most likely, unless you have just like dotted every I and crossed every T and done so much on your own, had so many people read it, had so many people give you feedback, it's possible. And oh my gosh, kudos to you if you are capable of doing that. But otherwise, they should have a vision for what they think still needs to happen. And you want to listen to that, and you want to see if it resonates with you, see if it makes sense. That is one of the reasons that I chose the agent that I now have and love so dearly, is because her feedback was so smart. When I heard it, it had never occurred to me, but when I heard what she had to say, I was like, oh my gosh, that is absolutely true. And I want you to look at everything I write forever, because I want you to find those things that I can improve. So listen, let down your guard. You're gonna have work to do. It sucks. We all hate work. We all hate delaying gratification, but that is the reality of making books. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of delayed gratification. And your agent is gonna be probably the most important person and co-worker in quality control for your manuscript and getting your manuscript to a place where it is sellable, and hopefully sellable for all kinds of boku bucks. And that's what they have in mind. They want to sell your book for as much as they possibly can. And so they're gonna be very clear-eyed about how to do that. You don't want to sell out, you know? I mean, some people, they want to write things that are going to be huge commercial successes. And so they're going to need an agent who has that eye. Some people are less concerned with commercial success and more concerned with the art or the craft. They are okay if maybe it doesn't reach the hugest audience, but they want it to be exactly what they want it to be, even if it's a little bit niche. And so they are not going to want the feedback of an agent with a super commercial mind. They're going to want a more artistic, critical eye. And so be honest with yourself about what you want, about what your goals are. Be honest with your agent about what your goals are. They may ask you, are you more interested in sort of like artistic success, as if these are like separate categories, or are you more interested in commercial success, meaning money? Are you more interested in critical success? Like, do you want reviewers and do you want to win prizes? And these things are not always the same. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they don't. And so think about that. What will make you feel like a success? And go into these interactions with agents knowing that, knowing what you're looking for, and trying to find the personality and the skill set that's going to set you up for that. Then you will receive an offer of representation. Hopefully, most likely, if you're having a phone conversation, there's a pretty good chance that that's where you're at. And you will have to make a decision. This was such a hard situation for me at various points. The first time it wasn't hard because one agent beat the rest, and I didn't know that I should give everyone a chance, and so I just went with the super enthusiastic, aggressive go-getter without hearing the others out. So I just made my decision real fast. But in a subsequent situation, I really had to weigh some things, and I had to weigh sort of like my intuition, my gut, versus some things on paper. So I was debating between this kind of rock star agent that I had access to through my mentor, who represented just like huge people that I was just like, oh my gosh, this is insane. But she did not have the same artistic vision that I have. She hadn't worked on my genre, fantasy, horror, kind of dark literary. And I didn't feel like she saw the book the way I see the book, had the same vision. I felt like she was gonna want me to do things that were not really what I was going for. But all that, you know, all those connections, all that big name, all those big authors, versus another agent who had made big deals, but I didn't know some of the names on the list, but she felt so right, and she just felt so compatible. She seemed like a friend. I could talk to her so much. She had such wise and brilliant artistic vision and tons of experience, like really cool experience in the industry. And I really struggled. And a lot of people advised me, you know, just do what makes sense on paper. This is business. This is not friendship. This is blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, the right choice was going with my gut. That was the right choice. And I think it'll be the right choice for you too. So that is the how-to of getting this literary agent, should you decide that you want one. There is also the big gaping hole in this of query letters, and that is a whole thing unto itself. I will do another video where I will show you my query letters. There was one for initial rounds of querying and another later. Yeah, I don't know if I need to get into all that, but I'll show you a query letter, and I will explain to you what you need to do in a query letter, and yeah, we'll just talk about that and help you get yours going. The other thing that you might be asked for, I was only asked for this once, was a detailed plot summary. It was super painful. to do. And yeah, so we'll talk about all that. I'm not going to go into that now. But thank you so much. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I will try to make sure that I hit them.